Dr. Kanchan Gupta, Dr. B. Ananda Reddy, Dr. Noel Solani, Professor Sihao Inkobani, Ms. Gugu Imkis, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Ms. Shasti Harinarai, Mr. Piyush Khandewal, distinguished online guests, on behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to today's program, the first day of 3 days of the Online Heritage Festival, the theme being Heritage of Knowledge. Traditional knowledge passed on through generations is a very valuable and unique resource to all cultures and societies. How this knowledge can be used to improve development planning and implementation is becoming an increasingly important part of contemporary development practice. To begin with today's program, I would like to invite our very first guest speaker, Professor Sihao Inkobani from the University of KwaZulu-Natal Research Area, African Languages for his remarks. Professor Inkobani is an indecisive academic and astute professional educator, researcher, communicator, author, and editor of published books, and also a professor of the isiZulu language. Linguistic He is also a very most senior and accomplished isiZulu linguistic in the country. He has participated in the former University of Natal and now known as the new KwaZulu-Natal, playing the role in decision-making structures as a deputy dean in the Faculty of Development and Social Science. His visionary perspective has earned him opportunities to work in the local and national strategic positions. Ms. Professor Inkobane.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about perspectives of heritage as knowledge capital. My presentation today is about heritage of knowledge and practices. We have an obligation as African people, and all of us, to ensure that our cultural heritage is sustained and is protected, preserved, and promoted. Of this nature should be encouraged if we are serious in achieving this goal. We all inherited languages and traditions from our forebears, and that alone places an important responsibility on our shoulders that what we inherited from our parents does not disappear and carried over to the future of our children and grandchildren. Knowledge is commonly defined as facts, information, and skills acquired through experience or education or practical understanding of a subject. In the context, I'd like to focus on African knowledge as part of heritage. Knowledge survives across multiple generations, a tradition. It between present and our future. This bond is what has brought us a cognitive break, has taken away of living and forced us to rethink our new ways of life. It also provided us with an opportunity to reaffirm our heritage as African people and the people of the world. Traditional culture are shared experiences that are passed from generation to generation through norms that govern social behaviors such as languages. We have festivals, we have rituals, ceremonies that carry a symbolic meaning and often used to mark rite of passage. It is the living collective memory of people to equip successive generations in pursuing their future. It also comprises legacies of the past, such as one history, identity, and shared identity of a person who is a collective event that is limited to written accounted for in the eyes of the of audience. I think we need to rely on oral history when we take stock of historic events that matters to us as Africans. This shared knowledge is transmitted in the form of oral transmission by acting and through narrative. African knowledge systems do not begin and end in formal schooling settings. It is based on a worldview and culture that includes wholeness, community, and harmony, which are deeply embedded in a human being in the midst of other people around. Such knowledge is a collective effort where all these things include the role played by companies in storytelling and also in initiation schools. We also regain the wisdom through proverbs, folklore, praise songs, dance, and music. Knowledge in the African perspective. Structures within of history and heritage helps children understand how they became who they are. It also contributes to the building of character and enhances one's life. Let me go back to the initiation schools. The initiation schools are not just about where teaching takes place. The African wisdom and cultural matters are embedded with precision. While on the other side, the girls are trained by the role models, which we call them amaqhikiza. Amaqhikiza means senior girls who guide them through. No woman is allowed to walk alone, but he has to be in the presence of other girls to prevent any harm that may occur. So I think in the midst of the social ills that we experience in our country, some of the reasons that we allow girls to be independent, walk alone, but if the girls will always be in the company of other girls, no man can break in. So everyone heritage through knowledge sharing, we can no longer depend on other cultures to dominate our way of living. Our identity and the provision and application of our indigenous knowledge formation is an essential of who we are. As Africans in South Africa, knowledge we have acquired from our parents, our children, as a point of reference. The time has come to tap into the wisdom of indigenous knowledge. And I want to end with this phrase which says, any knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ngubani, for sharing your immense knowledge with us. Our next guest speaker is Dr. Kanchan Gupta, Chairman of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation, Ministry of Culture, Government of India, for his remarks. Dr. Kanchan Gupta is a senior journalist and a very well-known writer, critic, and he is currently the chairman of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. He is also a very distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation in New Delhi in India.
Namaste, everybody. Greetings from India. Thank you, Sheril Banwari Lalji, for that very glowing introduction. I would rather think of myself as a common voice of India and the world. Let me begin by thanking Dr. Chaitanya Prakash, who's yogi. He is the director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban. Thank you for providing me with this opportunity. It's a pleasure and it's a privilege to share some thoughts with such an august gathering of thinkers on this particular occasion. I was asked to speak about the heritage of knowledge of India. We in India look at our country not just as a landmass. We look at it as a civilizational construct. We see ourselves as the inheritors of a civilization that dates back to some 5,000 odd years or maybe more. And we see ourselves as shaped by our civilizational history, which is also essentially our cultural history. We talk of knowledge in India. I mean, knowledge in today's context, when the world is well into the fourth industrial revolution, is essentially about modern day technology. It's about evolving technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the push appears to be how to replace man with machine, intelligent machine. But knowledge in the bigger, larger context is something which often obfuscates whenever we debate and discuss knowledge in the public sphere. In India, our knowledge base, our knowledge heritage would essentially be all the great texts that we have inherited, whether they are the Vedas or the Upanishads, or latter day texts like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Gita. We have Shushruta's text on health, public hygiene. We have an endless long list of texts, and they really were never written down. We had India is known, Indian civilization is known for its oral tradition. Knowledge was passed on from generation to generation through the spoken word, through explanations, through explorations, through interpretations and interpolations. And at some point, that knowledge got codified and sort of appeared in the form of written texts. The point which I am trying to make is that at no stage was this knowledge meant to be only for India or only for the landmass which we today call India. There was something very universal about it. All our texts talk about the universe. They don't talk about a country. They don't talk about a people. They don't talk about a nation. They talk about the universe. So there's something essentially universal about our knowledge tradition, about our traditional knowledge, and about the texts that form the bedrock of that tradition, of that heritage. So if you pick up any of the books, if you pick up a Veda, if you pick up an Upanishad, if you pick up the Gita today is being adapted for management courses, for how to manage people, how to manage corporations, how to manage governments. So there is something uniquely universal, and it is this universality of our knowledge that makes it so appealing and non-aggressive. We are not an aggressive nation. We are a nation that adopts, adapts, and learns from others. And hence our motto, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. This is important to note about India's knowledge tradition. The next point which I would like to make, and my previous speaker, he brought it out very well about traditional knowledge in the non-textual sense. Knowledge that we have inherited, or our knowledge heritage that is non-textual in the sense it is informal. It has been passed on from family to family, from community to community, from region to region, and within region, among regions. And if you look at, if you are acquainted with the map of India, from the northern tip of India, Ladakh, to the southern tip of India, which is Kanyakumari, you will find that there is a common thread. There's a silken thread that runs through the entire country. And that thread is the traditional knowledge heritage of India. So, and it could be about anything. It could be about the food you should eat, during winter, during summer, during monsoon. It could be about the clothes that you wear in a particular place. It could be about the kind of lifestyle, the kind of spiritual lifestyle that is expected of you. And yet, while there is something unique about the rooted traditional knowledge of every part of India, there is also a continuity. There is something which links all of them into one big, rich tapestry. And that becomes the heritage of India, and that also becomes the heritage of the world. In this context, why I keep on referring to the world and to the universal nature of India's knowledge tradition. If you just look at yoga, yoga today is not something which is India only, or which is only about a people or about a religion. It is universal. Everybody does yoga, and everybody is trying to find out more about yoga, because yoga is something which impacts each person, the entire humanity, and it is not something which is restricted to only one country, one land, or one people. And moving on from there, I would lastly like to make a point about the sharing of our traditional knowledge, the sharing of our knowledge tradition, our knowledge heritage. That is very important, because in an increasingly fractured world, and the world is getting fractured because of reasons that are very unique to our time. I mean, whether it is about trade relations, whether it is about intercontinental relations, whether it is about inter-country relations. And then my previous speaker, he mentioned about the COVID-19 pandemic. That has definitely further fractured the world, and the world has become a large number of silos. Each one of us is living in one of those silos, and that is why we are communicating digitally today and not in person. So in this situation, something which can reunite the world, something which can reunite humanity for the larger well-being of humanity, for the larger welfare of humanity. It could be the sharing of our knowledge traditions, the sharing of our knowledge heritage. So while I do appreciate the fact that every country, every people have something which is unique to them, and therefore it benefits them the most, and that is why they should seek that out. But at the same time, whether it is in Africa, whether it is in India, whether it is in larger Asia, whether it is in Europe, whether it is in America, South America, wherever you go, the must be open to the whole world. The whole world must have access to it. The whole world must be able to learn more about it. And the whole world must be able to, or must be free to, accept it, to adopt the parts of it, all of it, and then adapt it to the way they live, the way they think, the way they sort of their own lives, the way they play it out. So that universalization of knowledge heritage, I think, is very important. And I'm glad that the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center has decided to have a 3-day discussion on knowledge heritage and how we can the fact that we are here talking about our own heritage, it also showcases that it is possible to bring together people to present their heritage, to showcase their heritage, so that others can learn from it, others can adopt from it, others can then adapt it to their own lives. These are some of my thoughts. Thank you once again for having me over here.
Thank you, Dr. Kanchan Gupta, and for making time to be with us today. I would like to invite our next guest speaker, Dr. B. Ananda Reddy, the Director of the Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research, Pondicherry. Dr. B. Anand Reddy, the founder director of Sri Aurobindo Center of Advanced Research, Pondicherry, is a well-known figure among the scholars and devotees of the Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. He also holds the position of the chairman of the Institute of Human Study, Hyderabad. Dr. Reddy has received his schooling and undergraduate education from the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education. He did his master's at the Hyderabad University and PhD in philosophy from Madras University. He has also brought out edited versions of his talks on the life divine and has authored over 100 articles on various themes on Sri Aurobindo's works. Dr. Reddy.
Namaskar. And if I can dare it, may I call it Savobona? That's saying a hello in your own language. So I do welcome both the countries, India and South Africa, in their own language. And I came to know that South Africa is called the Rainbow Nation. Indeed, because it's made up of so many diverse cultures. And that's where we have a similarity with India and South Africa. India too is diverse religions, but one culture. It is a one culture with diverse religions and diverse expressions. But the important thing is this one culture. How did it all start? Where did it all start? It started with the Vedas. Long back, maybe 10,000 years and more. The word Veda, it comes from Vid, which is knowledge. So you see, our entire foundations of our culture are based upon knowledge, upon wisdom. And knowledge, in Sanskrit, it is Vidya. Vidya itself means it's knowledge of the one and realization of the one. And then as against that, we have the opposite word, avidya. Avidya is ignorance. But ignorance is not lack of knowledge. Ignorance is knowledge of the many. And how and where we forget ourselves in the manyness. So avidya or ignorance is nothing but the sense of separation from the one. So our entire culture is based on these two major concepts of the oneness and the many. And this is given in a beautiful triple formula, where in the Vedas we see that the one divine, the supreme is only one divine. We may have all the thousands of gods and goddesses, but they're all manifestations, forms of the one supreme divine. That's number one rule. Secondly, this one transcendental divine has manifest in the human being, in every human form, wherever it is, whatever it is, as what we say the Atman or the soul. So you see, the one has become the many, but because of the many individuals, what's happened? We have forgotten the oneness. But India has also given us the path how to regain this oneness. But the beauty of our culture is it is not given any one path. As Sri Ramakrishna himself said, as many paths to God, so many as there are people. So this is the Catholicity of our country, that we have to reunite with the divine, but each following his own path. So that is the triple formula. And the same great wisdom that was there in the Vedas has trickled down over centuries from the revelatory knowledge to the metaphysical knowledge of intuitive knowledge, what we call the Upanishads. When it comes down to the Upanishadic level, this oneness of the Vedic knowledge gets a little split up, multiplied and structured. And there we have many Upanishads and then many schools of thought, what we call the 6 systems of Indian philosophy. These are all the schools of thought. These schools of thought are many. And yet the most beautiful thing is that they all ask us, show us how to reach the oneness. After the Upanishads, there comes the age of the Bhagavad Gita, which tried to synthesize all the schools together. But human mind is a genius one. We split even the Bhagavad Gita into many kinds of knowledge. And there came the age of the Bhakti. The first, the Upanishads and the Vedas were oneness and manyness on the level of the mind. With Bhagavad Gita begins the age of the emotionalism, where India threw up thousands of great yogis and saints, thousands of bhakti margas, but all of them again showing the marga, the path to go back to the one. So this is our genius. Wherever it is a mental level through practice of meditation, or through the practice of bhakti, through all the temples and cultures and bhakti yoga, again, how to get back to the one. We have the great Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda again, showing us path to reach the supreme oneness. So these were the things that happened, the stages that took place. But then, from the mental to the emotional, then the truth has come, the same one truth has come to the material, physical level. So today what we are going through is that manyness on material and matter, what we call the materialism. So materialism is nothing negative. It's only again the oneness expressing itself in a split multiplicity, where we have all forgotten forever for good the oneness. So that is the drawback of matter, that it makes us forget the oneness so absolutely that we really do not think that there is anything called the divinity. This is where we are at present. So you see, our knowledge has always been of oneness to the mental level, to the emotional level, and to the material level. But materialism also is not the end of the journey. Because here are people like the Rishi Sri Aurobindo, and of course we have Swami Vivekananda, who has been heralding the same cause, that there is a union between matter and spirit. They're not split, they're not separate. In fact, Sri Aurobindo goes to say that matter will be spiritualized as spirit has been materialized. So today we are looking forward to that age where matter will slowly turn back. Matter means materialism, physical culture, physical consciousness will turn back into union with the spirit. It's an age. And that age where matter and spirit are recognized as one, which was recognized in the Vedas, is the age of spiritual knowledge, or spiritual age. So this is the trend that Sri Aurobindo follows in this heritage of knowledge in India. So in India, the emphasis is oneness and multiplicity, what we later on call it as diversity. In philosophy, we call it as multiplicity. So we have great stalwarts in this yoga who have been guiding us. And India is known for its philosophy and vision of oneness, not only of its country, as my previous speaker very beautifully put it, universality. This universality is based on nothing but the spiritual oneness. So that is why India is known for its spirituality. So it's not that it doesn't mean that we are asceticism and yogis and sadhus running around the street. No, it is that attitude of oneness. So this is what is called India's spiritual heritage. And that is what is going to unite the world. World has attempted many ways, through religion, through economy, through politics, through this and that. But never have we come together. We have had this, equality, fraternity, and liberty. Liberty and equality has been tried out. But now comes the role of India with a spiritual turn to bring in fraternity. This is the vision great Swamiji has given us, and as well as Sri Aurobindo, that we are moving towards a spiritual age where there will be a full fraternity of humanity. And as my colleague told us about how this universality is necessity, Sri Aurobindo too speaks about this universality, and he calls it religion of humanity. So we are waiting for the next coming, and then we'll see how we'll all come together. Well, a very brief thing I discussed with our organizer Cheryl. As such a large concept, it is difficult. But Cheryl said, Dr. Reddy, please understand, we have many speakers. So I'm really grateful to you, Cheryl, and to Mrs. Dr. C.P. Yogiji. But we could put it in a nutshell. And I thank all of you. And I'm so excited to be there with my South African colleagues, because I toured the world, but I never went to South Africa. And so I was telling my colleagues, this is my first handshake with my South African friends and colleagues. So I'm very happy to be with all of you, and thanks to Yogiji for that. Well,
Thank you very much, Dr. Ananda Reddy. And we sincerely hope that when international flights are open, you do happen to visit South Africa. Thank you. We will now have a cultural performance by Maxwell Nkubani, Artistic Director of the Shaka Zulu, representing Heritage of Knowledge of South Africa.
Hola.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed that wonderful performance. Now I would like to invite our next guest speaker, Dr. Noel Solani, Director of the Ditsong Museums of South Africa. Dr. Noel Solani graduated from the University of the Western Cape and the University of Port Harare. He received a Rockefeller Fellowship to the Emory University, Antlatla. His deep interest on history, culture, and heritage led him to work in different heritage spaces in South Africa. He worked for the Robben Island Museum at early stages of his formation and development. He has moved to Mthatha in Eastern Cape, where he has worked for the Nelson Mandela Museum shortly after it was established. After 11 years at the Nelson Mandela Museum, he moved to Pietermaritzburg to be part of a team that assisted in the establishment of Mazala Nkumalo Center for the Study of South African Society. He then relocated to Pretoria and started a job with Ditsong Museums of South Africa. Mr. Noel Solani is also a member of the South African Museum Association and participates in its programs. He has published several articles on journals and books, mostly on memory, representation, culture, and heritage.
Let me first thank the organizers for inviting me to make a presentation in this very important conversation on heritage. In particular, I will be specifically focusing on South African heritage. For me to do that, I think I need to first start with the definition, a simple definition of what is heritage. I understand the heritage to be something that we have inherited from the generations before us, and vice versa. In a dialectical form, it is also something that is passed from one generation to the next. So they inherit it in this original form or in an adapted form. Secondly, I would like to link the question of heritage to culture, because we cannot talk about heritage without talking about culture. These are two interrelated concepts. Culture is that which we use every day for us to live, and that too over time could be passed to the next generation as heritage. Now, our constitution in the preamble recognizes that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. There are two concepts. There is united and diversity. The Constitution recognizes that we are a diverse society with many languages, with many practices. And our diversity has also does not only include the native groups, but it also includes people that came from other countries that came and became part of the South African nation. And the Constitution also speaks about respect of all languages that are commonly spoken in South Africa. And in that sense, while the Constitution recognizes 11 South African languages, but it also recognizes other minority languages for them to be practiced as part of religion, of culture, of various practices that people do as their inheritance. And with this, I also need to, or thirdly, to speak about the environment as something that we have inherited. When I speak about the environment, I speak about the land, I speak about the mountains, I speak about the rivers, I speak about the flowers, I speak about vegetation, and everything that gets produced by the land. because between those two things, there is interaction between the land, the rivers, the mountains, the seas, and etc. A small example is that the land produces vegetables, produces many other things. And one of the inheritance that we have as a country, to make an example, is what's discovered by the Khoi and the San. It's rooibos tea. Rooibos tea has got certain healing elements, which when you drink it, your body can begin to cleanse itself of certain toxics. Now, if we look at the seas, we know that the seas produces fish. The seas are places where communities that are close to the sea live on. They need to fish, etc. But today, we also know that what gets produced by the sea has been overtaken by the capitalists because they exploit the sea beyond how people interacted with the sea to get from the sea that which can make them live, not to exploit the resources that are in the sea. That is similar to what we can say about the rivers. It is also similar to what we say about mountains. We know that in many African communities consult with traditional doctors who give them herbs. And those herbs they get from the mountains, they get from the forests. So there is an interaction between ourselves, the mountains, and the forest. There is a close interaction between ourselves and the animals that needs to sustain the body, but also not to be exploited. That is another thing. Let me come to another concept about the shared humanity. You will remember we said we are a diverse society. As a diverse society we are, and with diverse inheritances, we have influenced each other over the years in terms of the food that we eat and that we enjoy. We have influenced each other in terms of the music that we listen to. We have influenced each other in terms of the clothes or fashion or fabric that we use. And all these artistic and food expressions are talking to our inheritance. Let me make an example in terms of literature, because it will indicate two things. The first thing is that literature communicates to us who we are. It's a reflection of society. At the same time, literature is a recent phenomenon which is more or less 200 plus years or close to 300 years in South Africa, because writing was not part of that particular culture. And as Professor Ngubane said, we depended on oral tradition to pass knowledge from one generation to another. For example, for any boy to know themselves, they depended to their grandparents to tell them about their ancestors, to tell them about their clan names, etc. So that's our humanity. But now these two traditions are moving forward side by side, and we have to recognize them, because no society is static. Society develops and grows over time, and certain traditions, certain cultures change, and so people adapt to new forms of technologies. So those technologies also are part of our own inheritance. And A.C. Jordan wrote a book in Ngqumbo Yeminyanya, The Wrath of the Ancestors. The book is about the conflict that was taking place between tradition and modernity, the movement towards modernity. And it is illustrated by a chief and who went to university and the traditionalist who wants to maintain the way of living as it was. And we can see in any society, for there to be movement, there has to be this conflict so that society can move forward. And the next generations that come would have inherited that progression. So that is our inheritance. And therefore we say South Africa has got cultural institutions or heritage institutions like museums, monuments, etc. Whilst we want many of those monuments to transform, that they begin to give a glimpse, a window into the heritage of South Africa. And therefore, we are pleased that we have archaeologists and people of that sort that begin to dig deep into the pre-colonial history. And because of that, we have realized that our civilization, the civilization of the people of South Africa, dates back long time ago. We have Mapungube and the gold that was melted there, that our people have been doing. So it means mining is not a new phenomenon within the South African economy. Exchange of goods between Africa or South Africa or Southern Africa and the East has been continuing over centuries. And therefore, those also become our inheritance. And all they talk to is that humanity has always been sharing experiences. Humanity has always been interacting. Humanity has always been learning from each other. So the greatest of all inheritance is that we need to respect each other. We need to respect each other as human beings. We need to learn from each other so that we can live better lives. Thank you very much.
We will now have a cultural performance representing Heritage of Knowledge of India.
Hello everybody, a very very warm welcome to everybody present here. Rabindranath Thakur's Chitrangada is a dance drama that is set in the backdrop of Manipur. The king of Manipur is bestowed with a boon from Lord Shiva that only sons will be born in his family. Thereafter, when Chitrangada was born to him, he raised her and brought her up as a boy, training and educating her in archery, warfare, polity and politics, only to take on the responsibilities of a king. The dance drama unfolds when Arjuna, one of the Pandavas in the Mahabharata, comes back after his 12-year-long celibacy and chanced upon Chitrangada dressed as a man who was on a hunting spree with her friends. Arjuna mistook them to be young boys who had no knowledge about archery. Chitrangada was enraged with this attitude of Arjuna. She then invited him for a fight, only to be refused by Arjuna. Chitrangada was bewildered that the woman in her had started to fall in love with Arjuna, only to be refused by him. She then sought help from Madan, the god of love, and requested him to transform her into a beautiful lady or a Shurupa, only to entice Arjuna. Awestruck by Chitrangada's transformed beauty, Arjuna was speechless and mesmerized. Arjuna was astonished by Chitrangada's fighting skills and wanted to meet the warrior princess, only to know and discover the real Chitrangada. He then proposes to Chitrangada and wishes to marry her. Chitrangada warns him that she is a Rajendra Nandini a princess, not a Devi, not an ordinary woman. She wants to be equal to her man, not otherwise. Tagore's concern over the woman's identity and her position in the society is the essence of this dance drama. Chitrangada also highlights how inner beauty transcends all forms of physical beauty, and that is exactly what Arjuna seeks in Chitrangada, and the dance drama carries on. Thank you.
তুমি কোন ভাঙনের পথে এলে, সুপ্ত রাতে তুমি কোন ভাঙনের পথে এলে, রাতে আমার ভাঙলো যাতা, ধন্য হলো চরণ পথে, তুমি কোন ভাঙনের পথে একদিন গিয়েছিল মৃগ অন্বেষণে একাকী। তরুমূলে বাঁধি অশ্ব দুর্গম কুটিল বনপথে বসিলাম। সহসা দেখিল রুধিয়া সংকীর্ণ পথ রয়েছে শয়ান, ভূমিতলে চিরধারী মলিন পুরুষ। উঠিতে কহিল তার অবকাশ, করিল তাড়না। সরল সুদীর্ঘ দেহ মুহূর্তেই তীর বেগে উঠিল দাঁড়ায় সম্মুখে আমার। সেই মুহূর্তেই জানিলাম মনে নারী আমি। বুঝিনি রূপে ছিলে সূর্যলোকে, মধুকণ আলো লাগলো চোখে, মধুকণ আলো লাগলো চোখে। ছিল মন তোমারি প্রতি পুরুষের বেশ। করিলাম রক্তাঙ্গন, কঙ্কন, কিঙ্কিণী, কাঞ্চি, অনভ্যস্ত সাজ লজ্জায় জড়ায় রহিল একান্ত সসংকোচে। গোপনে গেলাম সেই বনে, শিবালয়ে। মনে নাই ভালো কি কহিনু আমি, শুধু শেষ কথা কার কর্ণে মোর বাজিতে লাগিল তপ্ত শুল।
ব্রহ্মচারী ব্রত ধরে আমি পতিযোগ্য নহি বরাঙ্গনে।
পুরুষের ব্রহ্মচর্য ঠিক করে, তাহাও আমি নারীর টলাতে। হে অনঙ্গদেব, সব দম্ভ মোর এক দণ্ডে লয়েছ ছিনিয়া, সব বিদ্যা সব বল করেছ তোমার পদানত। এখন তোমার বিদ্যা শিখাও আমায়।
আমি হব সহায় তোমার, ওই সুখে বিশ্বজয়ী অর্জুনে চিনিয়া বন্দি করি আনি দিব সম্মুখে তোমার।
হে বসন্ত, সে বাসনা পুরাও আমার শুধু তিলেকের তরে।
তথাস্তু, শুধু একদিন নহে, বসন্তের পুষ্প শোভা এক বর্ষ ধরি ফেরিয়া তোমার তনু রহিবে বিকশিত।
আমার অঙ্গে অঙ্গে রাজা
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed that wonderful performance. Our next guest speaker is Miss Gugu Imkees from the University of KwaZulu-Natal Research Area, Zulu Heritage and Culture. Miss Gugu Imkees is a lecturer in the discipline of African languages at UKZN, teaching phonology, morphology, heritage and culture and terminology.
Sanbonani, good afternoon. My topic will be the confidentiality and secrecy which hinder the transmission of heritage and knowledge. I will speak mainly from the Zulu perspective because that's what I understand better. When we acquire knowledge in isiZulu, traditionally, we observe and then we practice. Since now we've moved into the modern world, there is no space for our heritage to be observed and practiced, which then hinder the transmission of knowledge to the next generation. As we are today, there are a lot of cultural practices, rituals, and everything that is not being transmitted to the next generation because they are not taking place. So there is no way that they could be transmitted. Having said that, isiZulu language uses words in a secret manner. If you don't understand a particular word, it means you are lost, you lose the meaning, and you lose the knowledge that is in that word. In isiZulu, as Professor Ngubane has indicated, that folklore plays a major role in transmitting the knowledge. I'll just cite few examples of the proverb. I'll just take the one that always fascinates me, the one that says, the hunters of a buffalo lie still, which is in isiZulu, abazingeli benyathi balala ucwayimba. So if you take each word from this proverb, you will see there are words that look like archaic, but they carry a lot of meaning, which could be used even today. For example, ukulala ucwayimba, which is to slay still. It tells you that if you want to understand a particular environment, you must study that environment with all of entities in that environment so that you understand what is the next step that you should take. The proverb might be old, but it's still applicable even today. But because of that confidentiality and secrecy of hunting skills that are not transmitted, then this particular proverb is not applicable anymore, because even my generation, some of them, they don't understand it. Myself, I'm fortunate because I'm working with the language, so I'm able to make use of it. So that's a challenge. And another thing is that our language, it doesn't have the platform it's supposed to have, because now we are in a global, let me say, in a global setting where there are a lot of cultures, which is good, as the other speaker had talked about oneness. Yes, we should be one, but when I come to that oneness, I must come with my identity. So that, as in South Africa, we talk of a rainbow nation, that rainbow, my red, if I'm a red color, it must be there, it must be visible. So now when we talk about diversity and everything, it seems as if I must be nobody so that I become diverse, which I don't think is the correct way of looking at it, because if I'm in a rainbow, if I'm blue, my blueness must be seen. So I think that's another challenge that come through. Another thing is we are one. Now I will make use of the traditional Zulu wedding. Others are now querying what is a traditional Zulu wedding when there is a white dress and all kinds of things. But when I look at the wedding, I will say the Hindi weddings, to me, they are similar to the Zulu weddings. But now, the disadvantage of, I will say, most of African languages, these things were not documented. I know with the Indian one, you can consult books and see why you must have a dot. What does the red dot mean? Why you must have a string? What's the string represent? In my culture, we wear a cow skin. Why must we wear a cow skin? What it represents, what it symbolizes. So all those, that's why I say the confidentiality and the secrecy, because it's not open. It's only known by the few, which then hinder the transmission of the knowledge to the next generation. In South Africa, traditional healers, sangomas, all fortune tellers are making a kill because they sometimes claim that they have this heritage knowledge and they charge for it. And sometimes to listen to the language, the language will say, we are going to consult the liars. We say we see a monkey, why are you consulting the liars? What is it that are you going to get from the liars? But in any way, it's our language and it's the practice that we are in these days. So I believe that somehow, I know I will speak of Hindi because I've dealt with people who fall under Hindi religion. With Hindi, all the things, all small books explaining each and everything. So I'm appealing to the Indian consulate to assist Africans to document our things down. Because what I know that my children don't understand it. They know a little bit, but they don't know the details behind everything. For example, my daughter went to a boarding school, then she came back and said, "Ma, I was shocked." And then I said, "Why were you shocked?" She said, "The bird came into our dormitory. And what happened? All Africans put they hide their ears. They put their hands on the ears. All African children. And the African children, they were from the entire Southern Africa. So it means it's amongst Africans that you put your hands on your ears when you see a bird. The question, why? The confidentiality and the secrets is not explained. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gugu Imkis. Now that we have come to the end of today's program, I would like to invite Ms. Shristi Harinarayan for the vote of thanks.
Namaskar. On behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, it gives me great pleasure in thanking you all for this very indigenous, diverse, and knowledgeable program. The first day of our Heritage Festival, with the day being day one on the theme Heritage of Knowledge. We would like to express deep gratitude to our dynamic speakers from both India and South Africa for their very insightful remarks. We would like to thank Professor Sihao Ingobane, Dr. V. Ananda Reddy, Dr. Noel Solani, Ms. Gugu Imkis, Dr. Kanchan Gupta, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, colleagues Ms. Cheryl Banwarilal and Mr. Piyush Khandelwal. Thank you, Piyush ji, for all your technical assistance and support, making today's program an online success. Most importantly, we would like to express deep and sincere gratitude to you, our online guests and viewers, for continuously showing your support in watching today's program. Please stay tuned to SVCC social media pages for what's happening next. Namaskar.